Then you know what everyone would say, right? So we have to be careful with those things.
That'll scare us all away.
Yeah, that too, yes. So it was really a fun Halloween night last night, am I right?
Yeah.
That's great. We had 2 children. We usually have about 20. What a change.
We had 350.
No change for you.
No, about half of what we would have had.
Half of what you would have had.
Oh,
You had 5. Well, good for you. And the kids that came were all wonderful and nice. My son said to me, well, I bought for the usual 1,000, we had less than 100. So I said, the food buys will be lucky, and he said, yeah. So we're going to talk about change, and that was a huge change, the Halloween. That's what we're just talking about, the different kinds of things. And I hope you all took advantage and changed your clock and slept an extra hour. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, I did. That was great. So you're well rested today, and I expect to see no eyes shut, no sleeping in the pews. So we're going to talk about change, and indeed there's a lot right here. I see most people have their masks on, but I do recognize you, and once you sit down, you are able to take them off. That's quite okay. If you'd like, you were greeted with sanitizer. You could get a mask there if you wished. And whenever you're standing up and moving about, we recommend that you put that on. You did come in this way. I hope you brought your coats and all of your things with you, because you're going to exit this way. And I will come out and greet you as you leave. I guess we won't shake hands, but we will greet each other, and that will be good. So I like to start with a bit of humor, as many of us do that are clergy, and so I'm going to tell you about the minister that came to visit me the other day. And he said to me, oh my goodness, you are growing older. Age does change, and as you grow older, you need to be thinking of different things. And you need to be thinking of the hereafter, Karen. So we had coffee, and I said to him, well, you know what? I do that all the time. No matter if I'm in the living room, or if I go down to the basement, or if I'm in the kitchen, or especially if I walk into the bedroom, I stop and I go, now what am I hereafter? And so we change, right? I think all of us are a little bit like that now. Are there announcements? The BS group started on Thursday. There were few and far between, but it went well, and you're invited to come next week between the times of 9 and 11. And following that, the knitting group met, and they will continue to meet on the 2nd Thursday and the 4th Thursday of the month. And they will come around between 10:30 and 10:45. So we have those two groups going. If you are coming to the BS, there is coffee available, which will be served to you. No food, please. And so as we come, we acknowledge our relationship. And many of us here at our Dawson United Church acknowledge the land. The land on which we gather is ancestral land, the land of Treaty 6 First Nations. And we recognize that each of us that comes here indeed is a treaty person, and we give thanks. So I'm going to invite you to stand and to look around and to share the peace of Christ by saying, may the peace of Christ be with you. And also with you. And if you look people in the eye, you don't even need to say it again. I'm going to invite Norman to come and light the Christ candle. May this candle bring light into our lives. And may it bring light into the world where we live, a world that indeed is filled with changes. that light is tall and bright today. So, as we prepare to worship, I'll just read you the few words that I put into the e-news. You can never step into the same river twice because it is forever flowing. It is forever changing. And I hope it makes you stop, like it did me, stop and think. Ponder about the world today. Can we ever open our eyes and greet a new day, expecting it to be exactly the same as the last day? The same for us as an individual, as we meet with our family and our friends. The same for us as we listen to the news and try to figure out how it's going to affect us. So just take a moment and be still and allow that spirit to enter your heart as we prepare for worship. Would you join me reading responsibly the call to worship? God was with the Hebrew people when they left Egypt.
God traveled with them throughout the wilderness journey.
God was with Joshua and the people as they crossed over the river Jordan into the promised land.
God embraced his people, guiding them and protecting them.
And Jesus said, you have one instructor, the Messiah. Listen with your heart and respond humbly, seeking justice and living in kindness.
Today we can move forward, knowing that the Holy One goes with us wherever we journey.
And let us pray together. We come to listen, to discern in this autumn season, with its colored leaves, with its cooler breezes, with earlier sunsets, to grow in our own spirituality. As one season changes to another, Spirit of life, we know you are there. You support us in our journey. You brighten our path and bring us hope each day. Amidst the chaos of COVID, help us find a sense of peace. Help us to hear your still small voice as you nudge us into service. Amen. And I am so grateful and thankful that Dave has agreed to come and to sing for us. And if you know the piece, feel free to hum along. You may not know this one, though I'm not sure.
Well, this is another piece by Nancy Shea, so from Caliber. Wonderful lady. Come gather at the well and rest from your journey. Reach out to one another and share your story. Come gather with all those who thirst like you. Accept God's living water to help you through. The water from this well is for our cleansing, to leave behind what matters no more. What treasures from the past will be coming, then freely carry on through open doors. Come gather at the well and rest from your journey. Reach out to one another and share your story. Come gather with all those who thirst like you. Accept God's living water to help you through. water from this well is for our trials, to wash away the tears that cloud our sight, to comfort as we sit and rest a while, then set us free to brave another fight. Come gather at the well and rest from your journey. Reach out to one another and share your story. Come gather with all those who thirst like you. Accept God's living water to help you through. The water from this well is here to nurture, to comfort and to strengthen mind and soul. With healing powers it helps us to discover what hidden strengths we have to ease our toils. Come gather at the well and rest from your journey. Reach out to one another and share your story. Come gather with all those who thirst like you. Accept God's living water to help you through.
Now I'm going to invite Fran to come and read scripture for us. I believe the mic has been cleaned, is what Norman's telling me. Am I right?
All the bad ones are gone, all the wrong notes are gone.
Joshua 3:7-17. The Lord said to Joshua, "This day I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, so that you may know that I will be with you as I was with Moses. You are the one who shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant. When you come to the edge of the waters of the Jordan, you shall stand still in the Jordan." Joshua then said to the Israelites, "Draw near and hear the words of the Lord your God." Joshua said, "By this you shall know that among you is the living God, who without fail will drive out from before you the Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites, Perizzites, Girgashites, Amorites, and Jebusites. The ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is going to pass before you into Jordan. So now select 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one from each tribe, and the souls of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, rest in the waters of the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan flowing from above shall be cut off. They shall stand in a single heap." When the people set out from their tents to cross over the Jordan, the priests bearing the ark of the covenant were in front of the people. Now the Jordan overflows all its banks throughout the time of harvest. So when those who bore the ark had come to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests bearing the ark were dipped in the edge of the waters flowing from above stood still, rising up in a single heap, far off at Adam, the city that is beside Jericho. While those flowing toward the sea of Arabah, the Dead Sea, were wholly cut off. Then the people crossed over opposite Jericho, while all Israel were crossing over on dry land, the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood on dry ground in the middle of the Jordan until the entire nation finished crossing over Jordan. Matthew 23, 1-12. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The scribes and the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. Therefore, do whatever they teach you and follow it. But do not do as they do, for they do not practice what they teach. They tie up heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on the shoulders of others. But they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. They do all their deeds to be seen by others, for they make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. They love to have the place of honor at banquets and the best seats in the synagogues, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and have people call them rabbi. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all students. And call no one your father on earth, for you have one Father, the one in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant, and all who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted." God grant us an understanding of these readings.
Thank you, Fran. Well, I often think I learn a lot more from the children's time, the young at heart time, than I do from the sermon that's long and boring. And so I want to tell you a story today, the story that's the legend of the Cherokee Indian youth, rite of passage. Now, it's very interesting to me because this story is never to be shared if you're a youth, so I don't know how we have it, but it did say it was a legend. And so a father takes his son at the time that he is to move from childhood to that of a man, out deep into the forest. And there he is blindfolded, and he is set on a stump, and he is told that he is to sit there throughout the night, to sit there until he can feel the sun coming down on his face. The young boy does this. It is dark, and he feels so all alone. He can hear, he is sure, the beasts in the forest coming close. He trembles a bit, but he remains quiet and silent as he sits. He can hear the rustling of the wind blowing. Or is it a little mouse that might scurry up his pant leg? He isn't sure. He is so afraid. But he remains there, quiet, because this is what he must do. And he has been told that if he can wait there until morning, he is ready to be a man. But he must never tell anybody. And then, after a long night, sleepless night, he feels the warmth of the sun coming down. And he removes his mask, so glad that it is over. And as he takes it off, he sees that his father has been sitting on a stump close by his side all night. We must remember that we are never, ever truly alone. There's always folks around to help us deal with the ugly and the difficult. We have family. We have friends that are watching for us, that are sitting on the stump and waiting to enable us to manage life. We are not alone, indeed. I think I might have missed our creed. Can we go back to the creed? Yikes. And let us share that together. We are not alone. We live in God's world. We believe in God, who has created and is creating, who has come in Jesus, the Word made flesh, to reconcile and make new, who works in us and others by the Spirit. We trust in God. We are called to be the church, to celebrate God's presence, to live with respect in creation, to love and serve others, to seek justice and resist evil, to proclaim Jesus, crucified and risen, our judge and our hope, in life, in death, in life beyond death. We are not alone. We are not alone. Thanks be to God. Amen. Maybe that was the appropriate time to read that creed. Well, change. I'm sure that you thought about that in the silence before the service, and if you read the e-news, you knew that that was a topic of reflection, unless I changed it. And I'm sure you thought, well, why would I bother going? I know all about change. I live through change every day, am I right? Everyone lives through change. I don't need to listen to anybody talk about change. Or you might have thought, change is a part of my life every day and I struggle with it, so think I'll go. But you know what? If you came to find the answer of how to work through change, I don't have it. I'm trying to figure it out myself, and I'm definitely going to figure it out as we take this service. And I better stick to my notes because I'm always rambling on about one thing or the other. I might not want to hear what I've said in between otherwise. So I don't have any answers for you. But I want you to know that indeed you're not alone in changing the way we live. We're not alone in dealing with the changes in our own lives. We're not alone in the changes that occur in the world, whether it's in the environmental world, the political world, in our own family. And how on earth have we dealt with the changes because of COVID? There have been a lot. But you need to know that to live a full life, if you're doing that, there is constant change every day, wherever we journey. There are good changes, but it seems we dwell more on the painful changes. There's some changes that we agree with, but oh, for goodness sakes, there's a lot that we don't. And often we have to accept those changes, but not always. After all, look at the strikes that are going on right now. Look at the difficult conversations that many of us have as we move through change. In Scripture, we heard how God commissioned Joshua to lead the people into Israel, into the promised land, following the death of Moses. Joshua knew that the task would be tough. It would require tremendous courage. It would require leadership skills. And he heard the call. But I guess he must have accepted it because he became the leader. I wonder if he really felt he had a choice. But the leadership role was not the only change. We need to remember that the people he was leading, the Israelites, they were slaves. And they were being led into a land where they had to move from slavery into looking after themselves, making decisions. They would have to move through the hardships and the difficulty. They had had 40 years of practice as they wandered around, but now they were going to be able to start a new life. And indeed, the world was never the same for them. Never ever again. And I wonder how they felt being thrown from slavery into a leadership position. I wonder how they adapted to that. And it reminds me today of so many people that come from underdeveloped countries to a place like Canada or Europe or the States, where they see such a vast difference. How do they feel? How do they move forward? Or those people that come as refugees because they are being hurt, their lives are endangered, and they come. Do they automatically feel safe? Do we question their actions and how they live because they are unsure? I don't know. But I imagine that they feel alone and they feel isolated, and they wonder what is going to come next as they move into this new way of life. And then in the gospel, we hear the story of leadership teaching the right things. Then their actions do not match the words that they spoke. We hear Jesus pointing out and saying, you see, the leadership is making things difficult for you. They're saying one thing, they're doing something else. But you need to listen and discern. Those leaders were making the ordinary things impossible by multiplying rules, adding new ones every day, demanding exact observance of these rules. But they didn't offer people the slightest bit of help to enable them to do that. And the people, the ordinary people like you and I, we found it burdensome. So these scribes and these Pharisees lacked charity and compassion as they dealt with trying to encourage others to do that. And you know, today sometimes I feel, yes, indeed I do, I feel the leadership does exactly the same thing. Not always. So the people listened and learned to listen to their heart. And then they learned to respond to the inaction with love, with kindness and generosity. And those people in that gospel reading began a new life, a new way of life. And yes, these comments make me think of the rules, the regulations, the questions, the responses, all those things that are required as we deal with what? COVID. People tell us how to live. They tell us and we hear. And then we try to do what is right. But at the moment for us, it's a new way of living, isn't it? Putting a mask on, wearing it into every building you go into. And sometimes we forget. There's a lot of rules, a lot of change. But I look and I say, what does it mean for life today? All this change. For change is indeed a constant. Yes, it is painful to go through the process. A process where we learn, where we grow, where we find new perspectives and new horizons, new focuses and new strengths. If you would have told me the story of back in 1918, when the people were wearing masks and all these things, the Spanish flu time, I found that hard to believe. I couldn't even imagine it. And here we are doing almost exactly the same thing today. Once we see and live through things, we know. Change. It often means for us the loss of familiar and predictable. It means the loss of what we're comfortable doing, what is secure for us. And yes, it's often the story of gain or loss, joy or sorrow, life or death, union, separation. But that is all a part of life. We need to support each other as we go through all of those changes. And so I say 2020 is a year that we will never, ever forget. Am I right? Mm-hmm. It's a year of change. Wear that mask. Oh. Doesn't have it on. Only do essential things. That which you need to do in this troubling time. In the beginning, I thought that was going for groceries and coming home and staying home. Finally, I realized that if you're just going to sit in your house, you're going to have mental problems. And so you need to find ways to get out and be a part of life for that reason as well. But they say stay home, at least. Don't come into buildings if you're sniffling or you have a runny nose, if you have a fever, if you've been in contact with people outside the country. Come on, stay home, folks. That's what they say. It almost seems like the government will pay some people to stay home, but expect essential workers to really and truly keep trudging no matter what, to do extra, to go the extra mile. And rules are set up with numbers for cohorts. It's set up with numbers for indoor gatherings. Do you know how many you can have come to your table at Christmas? Not sure yet. Don't invite too many because it may only be 6 or something. We don't know. Numbers for outdoor gatherings. Numbers where you can sit around the table, and I kind of chuckled to myself because in Rand's family there's 8 of us, and we thought we'd go out and have coffee together. Oh, so wrong, you can't have more than 6 at the table a couple of months ago anyway. I don't know if it's still the same, maybe it's 4 now. So as a family that was in the same cohort, we still had to be split into 2 groups. And leadership has changed as well. We hear of the elections going on, right? Candidates promoting visions, making promises, some with the hope of changing leaders and others with the hope of just strengthening their own positions. And I chuckle because I look at the government and I say, who is the leader right now? Because I think it's the World Health people. The government's support, but the World Health are telling us what to do. And I also chuckle because of the variety of opinions we hear. And as I think, what should I be doing?